Welcome to Literally 12 Beans. We want to be bigger than soup. I'm a goose out of time.
I'm Kimball Pisley.
And today we're going to be talking about The Mandalorian, Season 2, Episode 4, The Siege.
Another in a long line of great episodes, that being this entire show so far, really. Even at its worst, it's still better than most of the Star Wars content we get to have anymore.
At its
Uh,
worst, it's at its best. And at
that
its
being
best,
said,
better.
I did have a couple gripes.
We're going to hit the gripes off rip.
Nothing too serious, but they're enough that they caught my attention. Gripe number one was Baby Yoda felt a little heavy-handed, a little ham-fisted, if you will. It was definitely more than I wanted. It was the first time I've ever been sitting down watching this show and watching a scene and going, and to the next scene. Moving on. Cutting forward. Just
You're talking
watching
about
Baby Yoda in
the school scene?
Yes, absolutely. Him sitting in the
Baby
school
Yoda school.
went on for far too long. I think Baby Yoda helping him or trying to help Din Djarin repair the ship in the beginning was a perfect opening and just gave enough Baby Yoda for me to be happy with. And then including his side appearances throughout the rest of the episode, as he typically does. But that was a little too much for me. I didn't like it. But in the grand scheme of the whole episode, it was short. It didn't take up that much time, so I was able to deal with it.
No, especially since we got Cara Dune coming back onto the scene in this episode.
It's
And
true.
basically everything she does is fucking badass, especially her little opening scene that she had.
Yes. Cara Dune is definitely a character that has resonated pretty well with Star Wars fans, except some angry Twitter blue check markies. But aside from that,
She's a strong
genuinely
female character.
considered she is a strong female character and an
Physically
absolute
and
badass.
story-wise.
Story-wise, physically, in every possible way. She's nailing it. Everyone loves her
She
character
did
so far. And it was cool
I don't-
seeing her come back. She has good riff with the Mandalorian. And
she
her,
does. She's the good back and forth.
Her past as a rebel shock trooper is just inherently interesting in the post-war era of Star Wars.
I think so as well. Did you notice that that combat role using the body as cover? They did it in I only really stood out to me because they did it in the Punisher TV show on Netflix.
Do you think there's a relation?
I think that might have been like a hey, a callback to a show that I don't think anyone on that team worked on.
Well, this ain't a Punisher review. This is a Mandalorian review.
That's true, but I'm wearing a Punisher hoodie, so
no one at home will know or care about that. Speaking of things that people don't care about, Blue Alien Fishman. Fun for a while. I liked him at times. I could have left him behind. It felt like this John Candy motherfucker. Like he reminded me of Barf from Spaceballs.
He did remind me of Bart from Spaceballs. I think I don't know.
He was fine. I understand why they really needed a third body to flesh out the group, especially while they were doing their little side escape after the Mandalorian flew off all badass style to go pick up his kid from daycare. After he found out about, big reveal of this episode, Moff Gideon's alive. We knew that, but for the characters. And also, creepy ass weird Imperial genetic experimentation.
Yeah, that really, it raises a lot of questions.
It does.
And you and I talked about this after the episode came out, but no one heard that, so we're going to talk about it again here.
Obviously,
it really seems like so in prior canon, the Imperial Remnant was just a bunch of warlords, like kind of who wouldn't let go, and the Empire was all they knew, and that they just were trying to seize up the power gap because the New Republic wasn't strong enough to fill all those gaps yet. And as they mentioned in this episode too, but it seems like Moff Gideon is either absorbing those small sects or just out the gate, like he seemed like he had a lot of resources to not only have an occupation, maybe not a planetary occupation, but he has a decently sized occupation on multiple different planets that we've seen, multiple different large scale ships,
right,
and a massive experiment chain, like a whole lab going.
Yes, we haven't seen We've heard references in the last episode. They referenced returning to the fleet when they were trying to escape from the Mandalorians taking their ship from them. And then we saw at the end of this episode in our Quentin's class cruiser, which is in Star Wars, if I'm correct, which I believe I am, an escort frigate that is armed with heavy weaponry. So we haven't seen anything indicative of real Imperial power. Seeing something like a Star Destroyer would really cement how he's able to hold on to so much territorial control and unify a lot of Imperial remnant groups under one sector of authority. Imperial Star Destroyers are something that in Star Wars canon that we've seen so far, they're almost the cannon fodder of the Empire. We see them so often that they don't really strike that level of importance for the audience that they do for the universe, but it is important to know that Star Destroyers in universe are massive. And not just in terms of a physical scale. The authority that they represent and the power that they wield is incredible. One Star
Yeah,
Destroyer could
they're a scary
effectively
sight.
police yeah, they could effectively police an entire sector with a Star Destroyer. So seeing a Star Destroyer is a big deal. And our Quentin's class, which is what he was on at the end of the episode, is something that you would see as part of a larger fleet. So it does indicate something like that, potentially larger, because they don't typically travel on their own, like the Gazantes.
Yeah, I feel like they don't typically travel on their own, but also it had that shot that was kind of a callback to episode 4. There's a lot of callbacks to the original
Yes.
trilogy in this episode actually. Um, but it had that shot where it was going on the underside, which was
Yes.
how they've introduced pretty much every major ship. Like, hey, this is a big deal
Right.
since the beginning of Star
Well, it
Wars.
is a big deal that they have control of an Arquintans because those aren't ships that are to be scoffed at. So clearly, it does indicate there is a level of power there, and that's just on the side of ship control in the space
Hmm.
combat sector. They also clearly have some sort of advanced research and development programs that are still ongoing even after the collapse of the empire. And that's something I'm personally really excited to see more of because the dark, really twisted side of the empire that has been forgotten ever since Legends was decanonized. It hasn't been something we've gotten to see very much of. So getting to have that really twisted side of the empire show us what they're really capable of when they have no morals or restrictions on them and they're just doing crazy genetic experimentation trying to create super soldiers or some sort of secret program. It's interesting to see because that's stuff that we don't know about in canon very much anymore.
No, and we don't see it pretty much ever.
Exactly.
We really see just
Yep.
the Empire doing generally just bad guy stuff,
Yeah,
but never
general.
anything that's like never anything on a massive scale. I guess I shouldn't say that because they blew up a fucking planet, but never anything on like gene splicing or like that
Right.
would be like an ethical dilemma, you know?
Right. What we've seen well, there's some ethical dilemma behind blowing up a planet, but blowing up a planet is
It's minimal.
it's very military strong. Like the most we see of the Empire being bad in current canon is stormtroopers are just kind of dicks to people
Yeah,
sometimes.
that's what I'm trying to get at, and they're like
Right.
an oppressive military presence,
Yeah,
an imposing presence,
exactly. And now we get to see
and
what the things that make the Empire bad because Werner Herzog's character in the first season raises an ethical point where he brings up that every system that the Empire touches is improved upon, which statistically is true.
from
They
a certain point of view.
Yes, they create trade and security, but at a lot of personal cost of freedom and safety. And now we get to see the price of letting the Empire run rampant. They do these terrible things, and clearly they have that base set up on Navarro, so they must have been doing stuff with this project for a long period of time, long enough that they
The
have been
facilities are there
yeah, the
because there's no
facilities
way
are
he could have
there.
gotten the funding to do that. Running off of if Imperial credits, as we're told in the first season, are just are fucking useless now. If
Right.
he's running off Imperial credits, there's no way he had the ability to establish that lab after the fact.
Exactly. So I think we'll see some interesting stuff turn out with that. At the end, it looked like he was standing in front of some sort of hybrid death trooper, maybe droid combination. So maybe cyborgs. Maybe it'll be a reference to the Terror Troopers from Star Wars Force Unleashed 2, which is a pretty long forgotten game that wasn't received very well, but the Terror Troopers were a neat
Yeah,
little addition
that's what I thought
to the
upon when
legends.
I saw him. They look a little more droid
They
like,
do. Well, there's a lot of different
just variants.
Imperial forces that appear in different versions of Star Wars content that we haven't really seen in main form TV or movies, expanded comics, mobile games, things like that that we don't know if they're canon or not. So there's a lot of reference material to pull from.
And
But
finally see that shit in live action is pretty badass. But once again, as we
exactly,
said, I think
I'm
every
excited
episode
for
I
it.
would expect nothing less from Dave Filoni and
It's
the
true.
team.
Every day we're impressed. Once again, I spoke on this last episode. Set design is impeccable. They just keep blowing me away with more and more
I loved that
just Star Wars feeling environments.
I love that the music in this one was almost all just different variants, like different styles of the main theme, the main Mandalorian theme. There's like a
Yes.
sneaky one. There was like the bombastic, like triumphant one when he shoots down the TIE fighter.
Yeah.
They had a just recycled the theme, but they were using it in different ways, in different like octaves. I'm not a music guy, but
Right.
leitmotifs, etc.
I really enjoyed it. And then obviously there is the elephant in the room of, is this foreshadowing to try and tie in content that we're getting now to the sequel trilogy? More specifically, Snoke being a clone of Palpatine. He references the blood of Baby Yoda and says specifically the M count, which any Star Wars fan that has even a short term memory for Episode One will remember M count is probably most likely referring to midichlorians.
I'd put
So
money
it
on that.
has something to do with force sensitivity creating clones of Jedi, which has been something that has been said to be impossible. And then we saw these genetic amalgamation monstrosities that clearly are supposed to represent maybe some sort of proto Snoke. But I guess we'll see. It's something that we spoke to with another friend of ours, that if anyone's going to bridge the gap and fix a broken trilogy, it's going to be the people who made the Clone Wars, because that's what they did
That's
already.
true.
They've done it once
And I
before.
don't know. It seems like it could. It's too easy. It's too early to tell because
Yeah,
it feels like it could have just been, "Oh, we'll bring this up and then we'll let the fans run with it,"
right.
or it could have just been, uh, like, "Oh, we're gonna build on this later." I mean, the plot line is most definitely going to get built on, but will it tie directly into Snoke, or are we going to be left to imply that?
I'm
Is really
perfectly
the
fine with
question.
being left to imply. When we were talking to our mutual friend about it, he brought up how it's going to be an attempt to fix the sequel trilogy, and I'm not going to go off about the sequel trilogy, despite I really wanting to. But in my opinion, the sequel trilogy, maybe it doesn't even deserve to get fixed. Maybe we should just leave it alone and let it be, and then it'll be the ugly duckling of Star Wars, and we can just kind of forget about it. And right now, that's the mentality I have in The Mandalorian. And I think even if that's what they're doing, trying to tie into the sequel trilogy, so far they're doing a really good job, because as someone who doesn't care about that, I can still watch it and really enjoy it, because I get to see cool Imperial, dark, creepy experimentation. And that's something that is really cool to see as an original trilogy fan.
I think everyone's fundamentally an original trilogy fan.
Yeah, it's true. But
You'd have to
still,
be off your rocker to not be an original trilogy fan.
you'd have to be off your rocker to be a sequel trilogy fan.
We'll get there.
Eventually.
I promise.
You say it every time.
And every time we're one step closer. Each episode of The
Every time.
Mandalorian that passes. Wouldn't you want
We're
to
one
finish The
episode closer.
Mandalorian and have some context to your anger?
That's true. That's fair.
Interestingly, Carl Weathers directed this episode.
Yeah, I could kind of get that feeling,
It
because
felt like
Carl
it felt
Weathers,
different in general.
it did. He's not a bad director, but I could get the feeling that he directed this, especially with Blue Man Group looking ass.
There was also a lot of callbacks to, like, there was more callbacks than usual to the original trilogy, I felt. There was some lines the stormtrooper said that have been said before. We've heard them before in different Star Wars media.
Right.
Uh, there was obviously some shots that were supposed to harken back to Episode
Yes.
4 and different parts of the original trilogy. And I was like, "There's kind of a lot." And the first thing I saw upon looking at the exit credits was
Carl
Grief
Weathers.
Karga directed this, boys.
One of my last small issues with this episode was the Razor Crest was repaired incredibly quickly
Yeah, that was a little whack. I
in the
mean,
span of hours. But to be
you
fair, we
could.
don't know how long they were on this little mission of theirs.
That's true, and we also don't know how long, like, or how much the last guy actually slapped shit together.
Right.
It could have been a thing of like turning a patch job and like just smoothing it over, beautifying
Yeah.
it, less
Fixing the
of
wiring
actually making
clearly,
massive repairs.
taking out all those goddamn nets.
This dude's like, I just want to plant a tracking device, but there's all these goddamn
All these
nets.
fucking nets in the way. It was interesting to see an Imperial spy reporting back to the Moff Gideon and his forces, the fleet up in in orbit of something.
And it once again calls back to his influence.
It does. It kind of pushes the idea that there are still people in the galaxy that don't believe that it's over, that the Empire
That's
has
true.
been routed. And there are probably planets that exist that the Empire still has a really tight grip over that don't even know what's going on.
Yeah,
So,
communication is notoriously bad in Star Wars.
yes. So it's clearly Moff Gideon commands some sort of power if he can still hold influence over random locals. Because that guy is clearly some sort of grifter. He's not doing it out of loyalty for the Empire. He's trying to save his ass. And if random individuals on planets, just a run of the mill mechanic, is so worried about the Empire returning, clearly they have some sort of fist
Yeah.
of iron that they're still wielding somewhere.
hmm
And maybe
Not
that
to
fist
mention
of
operating
iron.
off the previous reputation of the Empire.
Exactly. So maybe we'll see that fist of iron they're wielding turn out to be some sort of genetic super soldier program. And that's what they're working on, something like that. It'd be interesting. I'd personally hope to see that whatever reveal they have, which so far they've done nothing to suggest it will be this, but if the reveal that they have for how they're still maintaining power is just a big gun on a spaceship, I'm going to be thoroughly disappointed because the
I
amount of
would be.
times that the Empire has pulled big gun in space is too many at this point. We
I don't
got 2
think
Death Stars, and it's a miracle that somehow the original trilogy gets away with 2 Death Stars, but the second one was the size of a planet almost, so I guess it's acceptable, and
this
there was a lot going on. But,
doesn't feel that way. Doesn't feel like that's what they're
yeah,
going.
I don't think that's gonna be what happens, so I'm not
I
too
think it's
worried
going to
about it.
crescendo and have larger implications, but I don't think that just with the way that the Mandalorian's structured, I don't think Din Djarin's going to be the one dealing with that problem on the larger scale. I feel like he's
No.
going to be living in the world where he knows that problem exists, but I don't think it's going to be up to him to solve the issue at large, like to take down the Imperial Remnant.
Yeah. That's
I
not
think it's
his
going to
job.
happen as a backdrop to like he's going to be living in the world while that's happening. You know,
Right now
the Republic will be trying to do that, and different
yeah.
characters will be trying to do that, but he's just fucking maneuvering through it.
Right now, he's just stuck in a place where he's taking care of a baby that very unfortunately is the centerpiece of a plan to bring back the authority of a government that spanned the entire galaxy. It was cool seeing scout troopers deploy off the side of the cliff. We never really get to see them do very much, especially when they were debuted in Return of the Jedi. We got to see they were just forest stormtroopers, but in canon, scout troopers they're like elite special forces. They're the forest recon of the stormtrooper corps. So getting to see them do some really cool shit was awesome. And I had that thought in my head while I was watching it, and then immediately 2 scout troopers crashed and burned,
Like a bunch
fucking
of bumbling
died.
buffoons.
Bumbling buffoons to the
There's the one
10th
on
degree.
top of the tank that decided to throw a grenade with dramatic timing. I don't know what he was doing.
He
He
was
was like, "Oh, I'm really
he was
gonna get
stumbling around.
him."
Also, Grief Karga, when he was firing back at those TIE fighters, the whole time all I could think was it looked like he was playing it looked like his controller sensitivity was too high. Yeah, you ever have that where you can't fine tune, you're jumping between 2 points? Because he was just skimming the canyon walls over and over, back and forth.
He's like, "Can't find him.
That
Couldn't
man
find him."
has no sensitivity controls or he has cataracts, but either way, he was doing a pretty terrible job.
He was out there fucking up.
Uh, Seeing the Razor Crest come in and whoop ass was really cool,
It was
and
it
the
was
flight
really
scene was
really
awesome.
predictable. Like I knew it was gonna happen,
Yeah,
but it was still awesome, and they all cheered, and it was a wholesome moment. It was cool.
it was. I honestly thought when he was doing the dive out of the air towards the other TIE fighter that he was just gonna fucking blow through it. He wasn't even gonna bother shooting it,
I thought
which
the same thing,
would have
and
been
but then I
cool,
was like, he's
but
gonna shoot the explode, and then he's gonna go through the explosion,
yeah, I was like, this
and then
man just got his ship repaired. I don't think he's gonna battering ram through a
I'm
TIE
gonna ram it.
fighter. For for the 4th episode in a row, the Razor Crest just gets fucked up. That's all this season has been so far. It's been the Razor Crest getting shit
Just
on.
getting demolished. Put some
Absolutely.
Beskar on that bad bitch. Call it a day.
It was
Didn't even get a fucking
fantastic.
scratch on it.
It was still a fantastic moment. The shots were really cool. The shot of it flying towards the camera and then uh, opening the flaps and cutting the engines was really cool.
Really
That had a
cool.
very much Star Wars like in theaters feel to it.
Hmm. It
So,
was. I mean, it was definitely a callback to um, Rey's move in the sequel trilogy
yeah.
in episode 7. But we're not gonna
Yep.
talk about how that
I'll
was. It
get
was done way
angry.
better. Yeah, we don't wanna hype you up too much. Don't get you started.
Right. The the end of the episode, the New Republic show up and they're talking to Grief Karga and they're filling out like a police report. He even calls him officer. But my first thought was this old Asian man is like the one guy patrolling this entire sector apparently.
Yeah,
Like
he's
he's
just
turned into the personal parole officer of Din Djarin because he is just following the chaos in his wake everywhere he goes.
everywhere. He's just walking around. Oh
Old
man, I like how
old
they
fat man.
they kind of cover for him. It didn't. It felt like not. I don't know. It felt cool. So it's like not Star Wars. It was like like a western almost.
I liked it.
Almost like this is a space western.
Yeah, it was cool. We found out that Cara Dune is from Alderaan, which makes sense why she just wants to murder Imperials, and that's about it. So that 2D kind of character motivation has been fleshed out into a full 3D.
Yeah, very cool. I don't know why he would. It was really dumb. Like, it was a cool line, but it was really dumb how he would be like an entire planet exploded, and he's like, "You lose anyone? Yeah,
Yeah,
dumbass."
my fucking neighbor really hit me hard when my planet exploded.
You
Cara
lose
Dune
anyone?
watched Alderaan explode and went, "My dog!"
Like, motherfucker, yes, yes, you lost somebody. I lost the planet. It's gone.
I just watched Captain America: Civil War, and that exact same line is used when they're talking to Baron Zemo, where they ask him, "Who did you lose?" and he goes, "Everyone." Maybe it's just a cliche.
It's definitely a cliche.
Cool expositional dialogue for
It
Cara
is.
Dune.
It is cool. It's a good way to flesh her out.
And
Um,
she's given the medal, uh, which I don't know if that's some sort of service medal, something from
looks like a
Alderaan,
coin.
or yeah, it might be something to do with rank. We don't really find out much about her time in the rebellion, just that she was a shock trooper. So another small detail that I really loved was Grief Karga talking to the New Republic officer about the transponder codes, because I've done extensive research into transponder codes and how they work in Star Wars for a Star Wars setting D&D campaign, which is of course something that we do because we're nerds and that will not shock anyone. But the amount of complexity
Gads.
in transponder codes is beyond anything. I couldn't even sum it up right now. It would take 20 minutes. And for Dave Filoni, John Favreau, and the team to accurately depict how transponder codes work and how he could just spit out there, transponder codes from this time period are just a mess. That's all derivative. It's bullshit. You don't understand. I'm
Yeah, it would
paraphrasing.
just have for a one-off line to really encapsulate how fucked transponder codes
Exactly.
are,
They
and still
they
convey to a
nailed.
casual fan that might be the transponder codes are a thing
Yeah.
and what they do.
It's incredible that the team of The Mandalorian made a one-off line that was apparently thoroughly researched for the equivalent of a Star Wars license plate, and they made sure it was accurate.
It's good of them. Good on them.
Good on them. Good on them for this whole season. We'll be back again next week for episode 13, directed by Dave Filoni, creator of the character Ahsoka. For those of you who don't know, episode is titled "The Jedi." So go ahead and put two and two together yourselves. You got a week to figure it out.
It's likely going to be some sort of filler on an ice planet full of spiders again, and then
I
Boba
predict.
Fett's going to show up. I actually think Green Arrow will make his debut in the next episode.
Yeah, I think the
Everyone knows how big
Save
of a Green Arrow
Daredevil
fan.
campaign, the hashtag Save Daredevil campaign, will make a cameo appearance in the form of an Imperial overlord.
So
Anyway,
they'll port the show over to Netflix.
I've been Kimball Pisley.
I'm a goose out of time.
Thanks for sticking around and sticking through this. Thanks to you guys. One day we'll be bigger than soup.
Hey everybody, thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. I'm sorry for the late upload, the holiday season and everything. All 35 of you guys are really on the edge of your seats for this episode to post, but we got this one incoming, and we're recording within the coming days, and the next one should come up immediately after. So really, it's a 2-for-1 special. It's a blessing in disguise. Remember to hit that like button and share. We're getting to the point now where we got some content out here where maybe we could, outsource a little bit, maybe reach a broader audience. But yeah, that's it. Hope you enjoyed.